Welcome back, everybody. My name is Gammatrap, one word, and today we're going to do a tutorial on fire effects, sort of like a scene or a video game kind of effects, where it's an actual use of these fire things. And then it's going to be stylized, as you can see. I've done several fire tutorials. Some have been stylized, some have been more realistic, but those were more of like the behaviors and how to draw them just as a concept, as the best practices to just work on their shapes, work on their colors, their behaviors, that kind of stuff. This one's going to be almost specifically all about their behavior when acted as an effect. So, for example, if an attack, like a sword, swings and you see like fire trailing behind it, or a mage or something casts a fire spell and having it, go forth, towards a direction, or you see like a dragon breathing fire, and various little, and like, or an AoE effect, like fire, blasting out from an area. That's what this tutorial is going to be about, as you can see on the screen right now. So without further ado, let's begin. All right, so just to lay a couple ground rules. First of all, this tutorial is going to be taking place in Clip Studio Paint. My last several fire tutorials were in Photoshop, so I figured a little change up should be necessary to make sure everyone feels like you're being seen, a little comfort to you. Second one is the fire is going to be painted in white. The fire is essentially a light source, so painting in white is just very simple, and then we can just add color afterwards. The third thing to keep in mind is the brushes. Everyone's like, oh, what brush do you use? What brush are we using this time? Just like the previous brushes, the only brushes you're going to have to worry about is just a hard, round, pressure opacity type brush. The one I'm using right now is it's a round mixing brush, but I have it changed to benefit me, to my liking. And it's essentially just the hard, round pressure opacity from Photoshop. If you press lightly, it's light. If you press hard, it becomes more opaque. The size doesn't really change much. What matters for my level of control that I prefer is the level of opacity. And the same for the eraser, by the way. So if you erase and draw with roughly the same brush dynamics, it has a very uniform feel. So if you draw with a hard brush and you erase with like a textured brush, that could be cool, but it's not a very consistent style. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. So with those rules in place, let's begin with the first one. And I'm thinking a sort of missile of some kind. Now, when you're dealing with fire magic being cast in a direction, there tends to be a couple different ways. There tends to be the caster, we'll say, is shooting the fire, and the fire is going forward like that. And the other way is sort of reversed, where the caster, will shoot a spell and it shoots forward like that. And then the difference between these two methods is the fire in this one, the projectile is moving this direction, but the fire, you see, is moving that direction. And with the whole like flamethrower way of doing things, the fire is moving this direction, and the quote unquote projectile is moving this direction. It's easier just to imagine there's no projectile at all. So we're going to be handling both of them. For starters, we'll start with like the missile version. And this one is so easy. We are going to start from the point where we want the missile to be, essentially. And we're going to give it a little bit of a tail, just a little bit of a helix kind of situation. And we can change the brush size a little bit. But the most important thing we got to worry about is the shape of our first point of contact, the missile part of the fire, where the actual damage is. The shape of the tail is secondary. The shape of the tail is important, but it's not something that's like super difficult to do. The basic rules of stylized work is shapes within shapes, don't be boring, and the rule of cool. So it doesn't have to necessarily make sense for it to be cool. That's the rule of cool. Shapes within shapes is, instead of, for example, this just being like a straight line, we're going to have stuff cut into it like that. And we want it to just kind of thin out and get a little lighter the farther back it goes. And the most important thing to keep in mind is just in a projectile form of like magic or whatever, the thing you got to keep in mind is the basic shape of the missile, of the projectile. There's a couple of ways you could do this. You could do like a fire arrow, in which case you would draw like an arrowhead with like flame trailing behind it, which is cool. Rule of cool, remember? Very important stuff. And then we can vary our brush size. The most important part is to just remember that no matter what, people need to focus on that part right there. This is just extra fluff to make this look cool, to make it look powerful. That's the whole point of the magic. And then because it's fire, we can have like little embers and things kind of trailing. Sort of like that. Now we're just going to make a new layer. We're going to have a soft brush for this one. And we're going to set this to either color dodge or overlay. Usually like to stick with overlay because color dodge can get a little crazy. Color dodge lightens up dark areas. If this is already light, we don't need to worry about it. But then we're going to take a color that's orange-ish from the orange spectrum. We want a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red. And starting with our brush very, very small. And then increasing in size. We're going to hit it pretty intensely on the tip. And then kind of have it flow outwards. And you want to get a soft eraser to shape this a bit to better fit the missile. Now I'm going to add a little extra saturation, a little more red. And yellow part of the fire tends to be the hot point. Not the hottest, but it tends to be like the hot point. So if you have a bright piece of fire, you want that to be more yellow, but the outer side of the fire tends to be more red. So if you're going to add red, you want it to be near the tail. And then we're going to add some yellow right here towards the front. Nice big comfy glow. Hit the back a little bit more. And again, we're going to reshape this again. Don't worry. Kind of like that. Now, if you really wanted to, you can add a new layer and clip it down. The clip one. Is that the clip one? Yeah. And you can actually add the red color preemptively. To the missile like this. You can also add yellow to the tip, but we want the tip to be white because it's like the brightest point. So don't put like hard yellow right there because that will actually darken up the tip. It'll make it more yellow, but it'll make it darker. So you see when we take the yellow away, the white shows through, and so it really has the light effect. We can actually just reduce the opacity a little bit. Find the right spot. Because we don't want too much of this yellow. It's actually kind of distracting. And you know what we could also do? Pretty easy. To really show off this fire is to just make the background darker. Yeah, it's not bad. Cool. All right. Now let's actually add a little more red to the back end. Now that we have more contrast. More orange. Shape that a little closer to the missile itself. Not bad, not bad. Okay, now let's do the other direction. Let's now have the flamethrower-like effect, which means turn this white, my hard brush. So the fire is going to be going that way, and the direction of the magic is also going to be going that way. So with this one, we sort of just reverse these, but we make the tail a little more wide, and we add a little bit of, I'll show you. We'll start with the tip over here at the starting point, then we're going to move this direction with our fire. So constantly we're changing the size of our brush to be a little bigger, a little smaller. So forgive me if you just hear clicking constantly. That's just the nature. That's just how it goes. That's just how it works to be a digital artist. And now we're just going to erase it, take it back a bit. We can have some of that helix if we want. Oh, there we go. I was wondering. My eraser needs to be hard round. I like hard edges. Hard edges is very good for you. Very good for your fire. You can even have some of that in there, or at least the little indications of it. All right, now check this out. Add a little almost like a notch. So like that. Let's flip the canvas real quick, because I'm a righty. Draw with my right hand. And the reason for a notch, typically, would be it sort of illustrates that it's not coming from a single point, but more like an area between 2 points, which makes it just feel less like you're catching an arrow and more like you're spraying fire. Now, a lot of people can choose to make fire sort of have almost water-like qualities, which I personally am a really big fan of. And to do that, I haven't made any water tutorials yet. Everyone's been really asking for them for a long time. I'm sorry. But to do that, imagine waves breaking on a beach. You kind of want to have... So like here's the beach, right? You kind of have these intersecting, cross bits of the foam hitting the beach. You can do that with fire as well. Because, making fire have like liquid properties is pretty cool, I think. And just the simple way to do that is not too much, because then it won't look like fire at all. You'll have to be very subtle about this. But start out adding small like holes, very gentle holes in your fire. It's back around. Work on our shape a little bit better. And the reason I like the hard round brush for both brushing and erasing is because like when you, the area that you leave looks really like sharp, really, really strong. Like look at this line right here. Look at that. That's nice. That's some good stuff right there. Now heat rises. So you can have fire do a little bit of rolling action. But if your magic is actually like casting liquid, like a dragon's breath, a common trope in that is that they actually spray like liquid. Like they form like a sort of gasoline or napalm kind of thing in their throat, and they just kind of spit it out. If that was the case, you have to treat it sort of like a flamethrower, and that one arcs down like that, like it's spraying like a super soaker or a water hose. So we make the edge a little wider. And we can round off this end if you'd like. It really depends on how close it is to its target. If that makes any sense. Like if it's hitting a wall, it would just kind of splash against it. But if it's just kind of going, add a sort of rounding near the end, like it's sort of turning into a cloud in a sort of sense. And just remember, when you're painting with white, what area is going to be the most well lit and why? Usually with fire, the most center is the most well lit because it's surrounded by fire, which is a light source. So really hit that edge with your white really hard so it's the brightest. And then shrink your brush down to a little itty bitty and just kind of very gently add some of these or some of these, you know. And that's the magic waves kind of effect, almost like a film being sprayed. Now, when dealing with fire, it's a balance of subtlety. Usually I like to work on this stuff really zoomed out, but I think y'all are past the point. If you followed my other fire tutorials, I think you're past the point of having to have your little hands held. I think you're decent enough, you know? Have a little faith in yourself. Make sure that notch still exists. Adjust the canvas. You might see me rotate the canvas here. Adjust the canvas as much as you need to make sure that it's the most comfortable for your hands and arms as possible. My natural movement, because my hand's down here on my tablet, so my natural movement is this. So try and make sure your tablet stays as useful towards your or as natural for your movement as possible. And all we're doing right now is just kind of cleaning up some of these shapes. We don't want any hard stops. So like we don't want any of these. Not on fire. We want it all to kind of flow. We like hard edges, you know, like these. But we don't need hard stops. And we can have some of the embers kind of coming out from the starting point. But then we're going to want a lot of them, probably thinner than that, around here near the edge. And these are sort of just, you know, when you're studying fire, you'll find a lot of these when burning wood, for example, because this is just, each of these is mostly just a dot, but it's moving. So it gives the illusion of being a line. Sometimes there are little, you know, sticks and twigs and bits of ash and lines that kind of fly around, but it's the majority of them are not lines. The majority of them are dots, but they have the illusion of being lines because they're moving. So if you are going to add embers, make sure to throw in some dots. And as with all things, hit the eraser a little bit. We don't want to be predictable. Stylized rule and all that. Don't be boring. Being predictable is boring. And if you're going to have an area that is just, oh, yep, right here, that's where the embers are. Like that shape is kind of boring. You want it more to be like that. Or at least to seem like that. At least hard to really pin down where the actual shapes are. I know I'm kind of spending more time on this one than the last one because this one's a little more complicated. The last one, I'm super easy. This one you want it to look good, you know? Now, I might just do some color picking, which is I'm holding Alt, which brings up the eyedropper tool. So if I pick that right there, I'll paint with that color. If I pick with that, I'll paint with that color. If I pick with this, I'll paint with that color. And it lets me pick the colors or shades or values that I want to paint with, giving me the option to have a nice smooth movement from one to the other, which also lets me make this cool like waves hitting the shore effect, you know? You don't necessarily want it to look like water, unless you do, of course. If we change these colors to blue, you can make it look like ice magic or water magic or pink or purple or magenta. You can make all these things look like all kinds of stuff. That's why we're using white, because we can change the color without much hassle. I mean, we could change the color without much hassle anyway, but I'm thinking of y'all. I'm thinking of you guys. We don't want any pill-like shapes to remain, because that's distracting. Remember, this one's being like cast like, yeah, from a hand. All right. Add a couple of fire bits. Fire tends to sort of flake off and sends fans of flame around. Very common stuff. We don't want it to be predictable though. So if it looks like there's a pattern emerging, don't let it. So don't, if it looks like bop, 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 boring. You don't want that. Good enough. I think my point's been made. Probably. All right, new layer. Same as before. Overlay. We're gonna use a soft brush. And we're gonna hit the yellow first, I'm thinking. Now the yellow is gonna be pretty much the main middle chunk of this whole thing. And then the bright bits. Any part with like white, not gray, you're probably gonna want to hit with the yellow. Especially the point of origin. Even add a little bit of glow like that. But we're gonna rein that in later. All right, now let's add a little bit of red. And we're gonna gently go over the outside with the red. We're gonna increase the brush size the further we get towards the end. You know what? I'm often reminded just how different Clip Studio is to Photoshop in many ways, and one of them is how it handles overlay. Let's actually see color dodge. Oh god, that's bright as hell. You know what? Overlay it is. It's glow dodge. Glow dodge might actually be the way. You know what? Let's try that. It expands the white too much, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Let's try glow dodge with a new layer and make a clipping mask, so we're able to change the color of the fire. Let's actually add some base color of our own with the glow dodge. Glow dodge is not something that's in Photoshop. Not necessarily. We want to hit the spots around the edges and anywhere where we don't want pure white to be. It's not good. I mean, you can have pure white, but you want like slivers of pure white. You do not want the majority of it being pure white. That's not too bad. You don't want chunks of it either. Like, we don't want that. Life is all about subtlety. So we can even erase spots like so. Let's add a little bit of yellow. Actual yellow, not that weird dark yellow stuff I was painting with for a second there. Nice. That's not too terribly distracting. Find a good balance between the opacities of the two things. Very interesting. It's still a bit bright though, but it's fire. It's okay. Now let's have a cool sweeping motion, like someone swinging a sword from here down to here. So it goes, phew. But it's a fire sword. Very cool. Very cool fire sword. Change our brush and eraser. Let it save. There we go. Change our brush and eraser to the hard brown. And we're going to have a fun little arc. Change my that. Find a good arc. That's not bad. And if the direction is coming down, then we're going to have the fire leading down like that. And there's going to be fans coming out. We're going to get a basic shape like this. We're still going to have some fire on the edge, but these edges are going to be corners. Like so. Now with fanning flame, you can have a lot of cool things happen. You can really show off the more liquid interior style of design, which means you can make it, brush on, erase off until you find a good combo that you like. We can even cut into this. We'll repaint it later. It's okay. Just kind of paint on and erase off until you find a good combo that you like. And having gray on the outside and then like some strong white on the inside is kind of what we're going for anyway. So that's why this is definitely a bonus. You can go up and down until you find one you like. And then feel free to kind of cut into them. This is hard, round, pressure, opacity, brush, supremacy right here. Flip your canvas as often as you need. Now be sure to add some waves. Nothing like this. If the flame is moving slowly, like this speed, then the waves can be small, close together. If the blade is moving fast, then the waves will be very wide, very stretched. And because this is a slash, the waves won't be thin and close together. They'll be stretched very wide. So there's only going to be like a few waves, you could say. But treat the waves like you treated the rest of it. Brush a little on, erase a little off. Trying not to leave little holes like that. Now, there is... Oh, eraser, please. Thank you. There is a genuine possibility that you might, while doing this exercise, make a really cool electric slash. You might be surprised to find that this is also one of the adding little microwaves. Microwaves, get it? Is actually a method of also drawing electricity. And I guess I'll make a tutorial on that too. I already have a couple of like electricity and lightning magic, like tutorials and how to draw them. And they do go over that the little tiny waves and stuff. So fear not, they do exist. If you want more walkthroughs and tutorials, you can have them. They're there. Just gonna hit the top a little bit. Have some heat escaping. And the main thing to do here is just hit it and erase it until it feels like it flows. As if it's just a gaseous form. Because that's all it is. Now it's stylized, so we're not going for hyperrealism right now. Anything. So if a line's like that, again, this is boring. We never want a line to look like it's like that. We want everything to have a little bit of an interesting thing to it. We never want any boring shapes. We never want any boring repeating patterns. So this line here is boring still. Make sure to hit that until it is no longer boring. And just make sure with fire, don't have any hard edges, because then if you do this technique with that, it'll turn into lighting. Which is cool, all right? Don't get it twisted. But if you're going for fire, might not be the best. You can sort of add a secondary fan. Turn trying to find a good combo of waves that I like. That's not bad. Again, just scan through the whole thing and look for any lines that are too consistent, like this one right here. It's just... Pff. And don't forget, you can hit the little floating fire bits for extra selling. Yeah, it's not bad. You know what? Let's do, from the start, for the coloring, let's add our reddish orange. On here first. And then we'll add the yellow. We're going to hit the yellow on the brightest points. Don't overdo it. Easy to overdo it. Now we're going to try that. We're going to try that glow dodge thing from the start, actually. Let's just try that real quick. Let's just see what happens. I'm going to start with red. That's not bad. All right, Clip Studio. First, you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention. That ain't too bad. Very cool. And so the way the glowing thing hits the work that we previously did to make it look like this is good. I like that. That's nice. Let's see here. Let's actually go ahead and just hit the other ones too, because I'm so curious. Turn you into glow dodge, big preach, and just hits you with that red. Nice. Oh, Clip Studio. You surprise me all the time. That does not look bad at all. The overlay might not be very good, but the glow dodge, that's nice. I like the glow dodge of Clip Studio. I like that quite a bit. And again, for the color of pretty much the entire thing, I didn't use any yellow because we painted the yellow in on the underneath this glow dodge. The color that we used was far top right of the box, but it's not full red. It's slightly orange red. It's, what's a good name for that? It's like too orange to be tomato red, you know? Burnt red, orange red, red orange. Who knows? All right, now let's have like a dragon breathing fire. All right, so now like a dragon breathing fire. So the dragon is going to be up here. It's going to go, ah, and it's going to hit the ground. I'm an artist. I swear to God. I swear. I swears. I swears. All right. So for this one, we're going to have a little bit of this, and it's going to splash on the ground. Actually, yeah, not bad. All right. It's pretty simple. Big shapes, pretty simple. Just kind of cut into the fire. All you gotta do is just chop those things right off. Just snip them. And you wind up with floaty bits. Now we're gonna treat this almost like the cloud. So clouds look like that. That's a cloud, I promise. But you'll notice it has these hard corners right there. It doesn't do this. Let's treat it like that. Let's actually have the fire accentuate movement outward like this. Not quite the curling. We don't need curling. We want the impact to really hit home that this is a huge impact of fire. So instead of little curls, it goes boo. It's going to go boo. And it's so big, you just can't even see the other end. It's just... In which case, we don't actually need the cloud curls until we get a little further out. Remember, the white is where the yellow is going to be. Any part where we hit with the eraser is going to be orange and red. Flavors of that. Yeah, it's not bad. There we go. Let's actually add a little bit of the heat waves. And keeping in mind that the yellow is going to be our white that we're painting in. And anything else that's not quite white will be reddish. It sort of helps you dissect what the end result is going to be, or at least visualize it, you know? There we go. Let's add the rolling thing, because I kind of want it to be, again, like, here's the dragon. Perfectly fine dragon mouth. Don't at me. And here's like a house. It would do this, you know? It says fire in a direction. You might have seen me like noodling around trying to find the way I wanted the fire to look. Perfectly natural. I don't know if any of y'all have seen my latest tutorial. It's actually about that. Experimentation. Sometimes you might just change your mind. Happens all the time. Don't be fooled. Actually had a flat bit. Now, actually, let's do a little bit of color picking so we can better iron out these shapes within shapes. It's a lot easier to do whenever you're painting with grays and not having to worry about erasing things too hard on accident. Changing your brush. Changing your brush size, I mean. Don't change your actual brush. We're using the same brush over and over again. Who do you think we are? I am. It's like one of the best sports quotes of all time. Remember, we want to get rid of any of these like pill-like looks. We like waves. Waves are cool, but we do not want consistency necessarily. Consistency is kind of boring. We don't want boring. We want exciting. We want stylized. We want gorgeous. We went oh so pretty. Gamma, please stop rotating the screen so much. No. Absolutely not. I will keep rotating the screen. The one thing I've learned is the most important part of art is to try and remain as comfortable as possible. Otherwise, you are not going to last very long in this industry of ours. Because burnout is a real thing, but so is physical burnout. You know, your body wears down after a while. Trying to force a position that's not good for you is, as implied, not good for you. Darken there. Just going to push this back a bit. It's too much white right there. Let's give it some variation. Now, this would be a little too far away to add embers, because we imagine like fire to be like this. You'd probably be pretty far away, and this would probably be a pretty big flame. In which case, you wouldn't even see the embers very well. So just something to keep in mind. You know. Let's add some shapes and shapes, shall we? Just remember, we don't want any lines that are the same width. The first step of being boring. Step 1, have lines be the same width. Step 2, be an accountant. Nothing against accountants. But you know. No, I'm just kidding. Artists are probably more boring than accountants, I think. I can say that because I am one. Now we can have the cool rolling effect. Yeah. All right. Let's see how this looks when we do the goods. I guess we probably should draw like a dragon. Dragon-esque head. Going yah. That's fine. This isn't a dragon tutorial. All right. New layer. Clip. Not that. Go away. There we go. Now let's paint on the red first. Now let's paint on the yellow for the brightest spots. Remember, anywhere that's really bright, hit it with the yellow. Wish the yellow is like really bright though. Yeah, that's good. The red edges again. And now let's try our best friend in the whole wide world, Glow Dodge. And remember, Glow Dodge, we were hitting this not quite red, not quite orange bit. Oh my. Would you look at that? That's not half bad. A little much there. That's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. I will say, I'm a big fan of this. Imagine it's just hitting a wall. There we go. That's better. That's better. Much more neat. Much more cool. Cool and or neat. All right, so there you go. I hope this was useful, helpful, and or entertaining. Feel free to leave me a comment below saying what you would like to see next. I'm a big fan of stylized stuff. I haven't done stylized tutorials in a while. Magic, electricity. I should probably make a water one at some point, you know, but it's just such a, water is such a tough one to teach. Forgive me. It's actually, there's plenty of great water tutorials out there. Oh, I'll make one eventually. But thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you liked it, a dislike if you dislike it, subscribe to see more. And you'll only get better at doing the thing by doing the thing a lot. So feel free to click on any of the videos you see on the screen right now to get started doing the thing. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.